In the mist-shrouded hills of County Clare, Ireland, there was a small village called Aille. It was a place where time seemed to stand still, nestled between verdant pastures and ancient stone ruins. Locals spoke in hushed tones about the old ways and the myths that had haunted their ancestors for centuries. Chief among these were the tales of the Banshees, female spirits who were said to foretell death with their eerie wails. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the shadows grew long, a stranger arrived in Aille. His name was Liam O'Reilly, a folklorist from Dublin who had come to study the village's legends. The townsfolk welcomed him with a mixture of curiosity and wariness. They were a superstitious lot, and the arrival of a scholar in their midst was both exciting and unsettling. Liam stayed in a small cottage at the edge of the village, near a forest that locals avoided after dark. They said it was cursed, an old wives' tale, he assumed, dismissing their warnings with a skeptical smile. On his first night in Aille, Liam sat by the fire, poring over ancient manuscripts and local accounts of the Banshees. He was fascinated by the stories, which varied widely but shared a common thread. The Banshees were harbingers of death. Their mournful cries were said to signal imminent tragedy. Just before midnight, a chilling wind swept through the village, rustling the trees and carrying with it an unearthly wail. Liam looked up from his papers, his heart racing. It was the unmistakable cry of a banshee, or so it seemed to him. He dismissed it as a trick of the wind, until he heard it again, closer this time. Curiosity overcame his fear, and he decided to investigate. He grabbed a lantern and ventured into the forest, the darkness enveloping him like a shroud. The trees seemed to whisper and groan as he walked, their branches clawing at the sky. The wail grew louder, more insistent. Liam's breath came in shallow gasps as he followed the sound deeper into the woods. Suddenly he saw a figure in the distance, its form ethereal and glowing with a pale light. It was a woman, her face obscured by flowing hair and her eyes hollow voids. Her lament was heart-wrenching, a symphony of sorrow that seemed to echo through the very soul. Liam's rational mind struggled to grasp what he was seeing. The Banshee's mournful cries seemed to draw him closer, compelling him to follow. He stumbled through the underbrush, his lantern flickering as the wind howled around him. As he neared the figure, he could see that she was standing by an old, crumbling stone altar, one that matched descriptions from the local legends. The Banshee's cries were now accompanied by a soft, haunting melody that seemed to emanate from the altar itself. Liam felt a chill run down his spine, realizing that the melody was not just a sound, but a voice, an ancient, mournful voice that spoke of loss and grief. Without warning, the Banshee turned her hollow eyes toward him. Liam froze, his mind racing. The figure raised a spectral hand, and the lantern's light flickered out. In the pitch darkness, Liam heard the Banshee's whisper, close to his ear but not quite audible. It was as if the words were carried directly into his mind. The whispering grew louder, more frantic, and Liam felt a cold presence wrap around him. He tried to move, but his feet were rooted to the spot. The whispers became clearer, forming words that were unmistakable. Leave this place. Leave before it's too late. Panicked, Liam finally managed to wrench himself free and fled from the forest, stumbling through the underbrush until he reached the safety of his cottage. He slammed the door behind him, his heart pounding. He tried to convince himself that it had all been a figment of his imagination, a result of exhaustion and overactive curiosity. But as he sat by the fire trying to calm his nerves, he heard the wail again. It was closer now, almost as if it was coming from inside the cottage. The cries were relentless, piercing through the walls and windows, filling the room with an unbearable sense of dread. The Banshee's wail seemed to crescendo into a deafening scream, and Liam realized with horror that the sound was not just a warning, but a harbinger of something dire. He understood that the Banshee's cry was not merely a prediction, but a force that drew closer, entwining with fate itself. Desperate, Liam grabbed his belongings and fled from the cottage, running through the village as the wails followed him, echoing off the stone walls and through the narrow streets. The villagers, awoken by the commotion, looked on in fear and disbelief as Liam ran past them, his eyes wide with terror. He ran until he reached the edge of the village, where the forest loomed dark and foreboding. With one last anguished cry, the Banshee's wail seemed to fade into the distance. Liam collapsed on the ground, gasping for breath. The villagers, seeing his distress, gathered around him. They had heard the wails too, and knew that something terrible was afoot. They explained that the Banshee's cry was not just a warning, but a call to action. It meant that a death was imminent, and the spirit's lament was a way of urging the living to prepare or seek solace. The next morning, the village awoke to the news that an elderly woman, a beloved member of the community, had passed away in her sleep. It was a heart-wrenching blow to the tight-knit village, and Liam's encounter with the Banshee was seen as a grim confirmation of the old legends. Liam left Aille with a newfound respect for the folklore he had once dismissed. The villagers continued their lives, carrying the weight of their traditions and beliefs. The wails of the Banshee remained a somber reminder of the thin veil between the living and the spirit world, a veil that was always just a whisper away. And so, the legend of the Banshee lived on in the whispers of Aille, a chilling reminder that the past and present are forever intertwined, and that some warnings are meant to be heeded, not ignored.